You absolutely have to let my underage teenager into your room party full of grown gay men. So, long story short, my friend is a furry, and at the time was attending Midwest Fur Fest. Try saying that 5 times fast. Now, there are a ton of fun activities that attendees can partake in, and most of the panels and activities listed on the official program are totally appropriate for families and kids. That being said, like any other type of geeky conventions, people will hold room parties in their hotel rooms or suites that are not part of the official program and are not the responsibility of the convention itself. Very often, those room parties will either be gatherings of friends, or sometimes they'll just be centered around certain social groups. For example, there are furries of color parties now and trans room parties. And sometimes, well, there will be parties of the more sexy kind. You know what I mean. Sometimes, to attract a certain crowd, especially at the social group parties, they will advertise the room party on a board near the hotel lobby to advertise the party's room number for those who might be interested to attend. Anyway, those parties are obviously private functions, and obviously the person who is paying for the suite and room has a complete liberty of choosing who is allowed inside and who is not, especially if they are just gathering between friends. Flash forward to Saturday evening. This is generally the biggest evening of the convention in terms of official events and room parties. My friend is hosting a room party for gay men in his suite. The attendees are all legal adults, the majority of them in their late 20s, early 30s. Nothing too risque is going on, but it is a bunch of gay men together in a room, so colourful discussions and a bit of flirting and groping is happening from times to times. I mean, duh. At some point, early in the evening, they hear a knock at the door. The friend goes to the door and slightly opens it to see a kid, no older than 15 or 16, standing outside the door. So my friend goes, hi, can I help you? Yeah, can I come in? No, this is a private party, it's not part of the convention, sorry. My friend then closes the door and returns to entertaining his guests. About 15 minutes later, another knock on the door. This time, my friend's roommate goes to answer the door and finds the same kid standing there. And this time, he has his father there with him. Someone say Wincest? Haha, friend's roomie goes, yes? And the entitled dad then says, yeah, my son came here earlier and was refused to be let in. Well, yeah, but is there a specific reason why my son can't attend this event? At this point, my friend intervenes. Sir, this is a room party. It's not part of the official program. Plus, your son is a minor, and everybody here is a grown man in their 30s. This would be extremely inappropriate. Don't give me that. We paid full price for an attendance pass. I expect my son to be able to enjoy this convention to its fullest. But that's what I'm telling you. This isn't covered by the convention ticket. This has nothing to do with, but this party was advertised downstairs in the lobby. The board downstairs will advertise a lot of private room parties. It's a convention thing. People will organize and gather amongst friends and social groups because they're all gathered in the same spot for the weekend. Doesn't mean that it has anything to do with the convention proper. Now please, can you leave? We've told you more than once your son is not welcome here. My friend at this point hushes the entitled dad and his kid out and closes the door. At this point, everybody thinks the story is over. Oh, but no, the entitled parents being petty. It is not. At around 11:30 p.m., a much stronger knock is heard on the door. My friend goes to open the door and is met with a hotel security and a Rosemont PD officer. What is going on? Sir, we've got a report of illegal activity taking place in this room. We would like to just do a quick checkup. My friend is flabbergasted but lets the cop and security personnel in. Of course, they find absolutely nothing weird going on. Can I at least know what this is about? This is very distressing. A man came up to us earlier and said that your party guests were doing drugs and committing acts of gross indecency by being sexually inappropriate where other people could see them. My friend then realizes it was more than likely the entitled dad and tells hotel security about how the entitled dad tried to force the party attendees to let his minor son attend a room party full of grown adult males, and how they had told them to leave repeatedly. Hotel security apologizes, and my friend got a partial refund on his room to make up for the intrusion, and no more problems happen from there. He doesn't know if anything happened to the man and his kid. Our next story was posted by user Dazalay, titled, "Surely the no kids rule doesn't include my kid." This story happened in the context of wedding planning, so I wasn't sure if it belongs here. But a member of my family definitely qualified as an entitled parent at that time, so I figured I'd share this with you. After my partner and I got engaged, we found a great venue in a beautiful part of the city my partner grew up in, and we set our hearts on it. We booked a date to have the wedding there a little over a year away. There was a fairly strict limit on how many guests we could invite, max 78, since the dinner hall at the venue was quite small, but this was fine with us. However, when we began writing the guest list, it became clear quite quickly that we would need to put some rules in place to be comfortably inside the guest limit. A lot of our cousins have children, about 10 kids total across all of them, which would have inflated the guest list very quickly. So, we decided on a no kids rule. I should mention as well that in the country where we live, it is not at all unusual to have a kids-free wedding. But as I was about to find out, some people are not okay with this. I mentioned the no kids rule to several family members before sending out any official save the dates or invites, so they would be aware. Enter a family member of my family, the entitled parent of this story. The entitled parent had a son who was about 6 months old at the time, and was apparently mortified that we could have such a rule. It would mean that they would have to be separated from their child, who would be 18 months old by the time the wedding came around. For all of what? A number of hours. And clearly we were horrendous humans for even considering asking that of them. So I get a phone call from another family member asking whether the no kids rule really applied to all children, and asking if we could make an exception for the entitled parent's kid because she was very upset. At this stage, the entitled parent couldn't even be bothered to talk to us directly. Instead, they moaned to others in the family and seemed to paint us out to be pretty grim people. I explained that this was impossible due to how many kids there were in the family, and that we were not willing to remove 10 of our closest adult friends and family to make space for our cousins' children. So, after a 2-hour phone call, involving me repeating myself several times that we were not going to make an exception for the entitled parent's kid, and listening to threats of family members not coming if we don't make an exception, things calmed down and went quiet. For a while. We sent out the save dates by email about 10 months before the wedding, to make sure everyone had time to sort their travel plans, since for my family this would be a destination wedding. The day after the emails were sent, I get a text from the entitled parent which read, "Did you just forget to send me an email, or are you just being presumptuous because I have a kid?" I was taken aback by this because I thought it had already been sorted out and explained. After some more rude texts, I sent entitled parent a screenshot of the email I had in fact sent to them, including the timestamp for evidence, and all they said was, "Well, what is the age limit anyway?" No apology, just trying to pick a fight. I ignored the message. Things went quiet again. Until the invites were out. Lo and behold, I get more messages from the entitled parent. Here is a paraphrased version of the things that were said across several conversations, with both entitled parent and a few other family members who seemed to think that my partner and I were in the wrong. All just lumped in under the entitled parent for brevity. "Are you really not going to make any exceptions? I don't want to leave my baby at home." "Why can't the kid's father take care of him while you come out to the ceremony?" "Because we both want to come and bring our baby." "Why can't we?" "Because there's a limit on how many guests we can have." "But infants surely don't take up any room. What's the problem?" "They still take up a seat. And how would we explain it to the other parents who have made childcare arrangements or chose not to come because of the no kids rule?" "If there are no other kids coming, then there is space for my kid." "Well, that isn't how any of this works." "Isn't there any part of the event where kids are welcome?" Me, ignoring the blatant attempt at emotional manipulation, says, "No." "Fine then, we won't come." Okay. Not the most exciting entitled parent story of all time, I know, but it caused a lot of angst between a few members of my family and my partner and I. All of our other family members with children were either outright said that they wouldn't be able to come because of the rule, or made childcare arrangements. It was only this one entitled parent who made a fuss and dragged other family members into it. My partner and I believe that it is 100% each individual's choice whether they want to attend a wedding or not, and we are not offended that the entitled parent and some other family members decided not to come, and instead want to stay at home with their kids. What we didn't appreciate was the unnecessary moaning and the general entitled behavior that was thrown our way. Entitled parent's kid really is lovely and sweet, having now met them a few times, and things are fine between us and my family now, but it felt tense and unnecessarily upsetting for far too long. All over something as simple as a yes to the no kids rule includes your kid. I feel like a lot of people have experiences like this to share. That's the end of the story here, but yeah, I feel like this is a really common thing. Always with people's families trying to dictate weddings. You know, they want to pitch in money and then they're like, "Oh, I put in money here. I deserve to have a say in your wedding. I deserve to control this." Yeah, if you guys have any stories of that, tell me in the comments. I'd love to see what you guys have been through. Anyway, next story. Our next story was posted by a user, CowsGoMoo414, titled, "Entitled Mother Cuts Entire Line by Pretending to Not Be Able to Speak English. Gets Thrown Out When Discovered." So this story took place a while ago when I was about 12 and was on holiday at my grandma's house with my mum and my brother. My grandma lives on a very touristy island and it was the middle of summer, so most of the beaches were overcrowded. Because of this, my mum decided we could go to this new pottery place nearby. However, when we called the place, it turned out to be very popular, so we had to make an appointment for a couple of days later. A couple of days later, we arrive at the pottery place ready for our appointment, and we get in the line of people ready to get to their tables. When we get to the front of the line, we meet the pottery worker. So my mum goes, "Hi, we're the Smith party. We made a reservation a couple of days ago." The pottery worker goes, "Oh, I'm sorry to tell you this, but a few minutes ago, I had set up a table for you, and a Russian lady came in with her daughter and sat there. We don't know what to do because they don't speak English and won't move." "Oh, that's okay. But is there anywhere we can still go today?" Unfortunately, we're all booked out for today, but our tables are bigger to accommodate larger parties, so you can sit with them if you would like to." My mum, being as easygoing as she is, agreed to this, because she didn't want to cause a scene. As we came up to the table, my brother and I were a little annoyed, but didn't make a big deal out of it. However, when we sat down, we heard the entitled mother and the entitled kids speaking in fluent English, no accents or anything. Entitled mother then notices us. "Well, hello. Are you also here for the pottery?" "Oh yes, we are." We all sit down and start painting our bowls we chose, and my mum attempts to start the conversation with them. "So, are you guys from Russia?" "No." "Do you speak Russian?" "We know how to say fire truck." We just repeat it over and over so we can get into places easier. My mum was kind of in shock at this crazy woman and her crazy plan she used to cut lines at places. However, at the same time this was happening, the pottery worker had seen us talking and came over to investigate. When he came over, he heard them speaking to us in fluent English and says, "I'm gonna have to ask you guys to leave and come back when you have an appointment." The entitled mother says stuff in Russian, which I'm pretty sure now was just fire truck over and over. What a surprise. And the pottery worker goes, "I heard you speak in English with these people. I'm gonna have to ask you to take your projects and kindly ask you to come back with an appointment so I don't have to call mall security." "This is insane. I'm a paying customer and we don't have enough time left on our holiday to make an appointment. I will not just leave." The pottery worker then picks up his phone to call security and the woman grabs her daughter and they leave. The pottery worker apologizes to my mum for the inconvenience. She said she didn't mind at all. He thanked us for being so kind and said we could come back a day earlier to pick up our projects because he would put them in the oven first. What a good guy. Our next story was posted by user Trish the Tridelt, titled, Entitled Mum to Be? Yesterday, I was at the mall and had scored a primo parking space not more than 50 feet from the door. As I was gathering up my things, there was a rap on my window. Our car star, me, entitled Minimally Pregnant Lady, and no one else really.
Please stand up. Please stand up.
So I lower the window and say, yes?
Move your car, I need this space.
Excuse me?
You need to move. I'm pregnant and I can't walk far, so I need your space.
I glanced at her midsection and, if this woman was indeed pregnant, she wasn't even far enough along to show. Why can't you walk?
Because I don't want to tire out the baby. I'm done talking, now get the frick out of my space!
Excuse me? Please, I need to open my door. I'm not moving until you leave, so move the frickin' car, bitch! I just rolled my eyes and climbed out of the passenger seat. I'm gonna slit your tires while you're in there if you don't move the car! I just ignored her and did my business in the mall, returned some stuff, took about a half hour. When I came out, the entitled mother that was barely pregnant was in her car, still parked across the 2 parking spots next to my car. I looked at her, she looked at me. She gave me the finger. I got into my car and pulled out of the space, and she pulled into the space that I vacated, laying on her horn all the while. I just feel sorry for that kid. And our last story was posted by user Doris Shade 22797, titled, Entitled Aunt Berates Me and My Mother's Health. She smokes and her kid plays PlayStation all day. So, some obligatory backstory. There are some entitled people on my dad's side of the family, but most of the time only have that holier-than-thou attitude and talk a lot of crap. But only towards my mother, I've noticed. They all have a big grudge against her for marrying my dad right out of school. So they basically see her as this cradle robber or something, holding every mistake she makes over her head forever, and blaming any mistake my dad makes on her. The entitled parent in this story is my sister, my auntie, who not only has this attitude, but also has no regard for the time schedules of others. She's interrupted many dinners and family game nights just to rant about drama from her soap operas. For hours! And she'll often call us at the last minute to babysit her short-tempered 11-year-old son. Lots of drama there I won't go into here. My mum, being a pushover, would often say yes, but if she ever was brave enough to say no, my aunt would act so betrayed and offended by it. That's probably the worst thing. She'll act like she and my mum are best friends one minute, but treat her like a smear on the family name the next, like the rest of them. Now, recently, my mother was diagnosed with diabetes. This has caused a lot of changes in the way we do things, like eating and exercising, but she's been pulling through the best she can. But this new development has caused that side of the family to virtually shun her. They don't talk to her, or hardly acknowledge her existence anymore. Now onto the story. Recently, both my grandmother and my grandfather, who actually isn't really as entitled as the others most of the time, I actually respect him a lot, but this puts a bit of a dent in that. They have both called her, griping about her poor life choices leading up to this condition. Something she was well aware of and making up for, but still didn't need to hear it from a bunch of old folks. And tonight was apparently my auntie's turn. And by tonight, I meant 2 AM. Yup, I ended up writing this 2 hours later as I was fuming, too much to sleep with it fresh in my mind. I wasn't asleep due to insomnia and a mild case of RLS, but I certainly wasn't expecting a call this late at night. I figured it might be a telemarketer or someone, so I picked up the phone to reject it so that it wouldn't wake my mother. But I was unfortunately greeted by my aunt's caller ID. As soon as I saw it, I went, oh boy. But I decided I'd answer it and ask her to call back if it wasn't that important. Here's how the conversation went.
Bring, bring.
Hello?
Hi, who is this?
Hi, this is Doris a Shade. Is something up, Auntie? Oh, where's your mother at? She's asleep right now. You know, 'cause it's 2 in the friggin' morning.
Ugh, seriously? I need to talk to her about all this diabetes nonsense. I mean, how could she have let this happen to herself? Don't you agree?
Yes, she actually expected me to side with her in shaming my mother. I sighed away from the phone before I decided to continue the conversation and try to end it. Well, it is pretty late. Maybe you should have waited until morning to call? Big mistake. This did not please my aunt.
Oh yeah? Then what are you doing still awake? Why aren't you asleep right now, huh?
Keep in mind, yet again, there was friggin' 2 friggin' AM. I'm very well could have been asleep and she would have woken me up. Well, I have some sleeping issues, so I was just sitting here on my phone. Not calling people at 2 AM, however. I could almost feel her sneer.
Oh, of fudging course you are. I should have known you'd be on that phone. You treat all those things like they're your damn lifelines or something. That may be why you have fudging sleep problems. Did you ever consider that? Have you any idea how unhealthy it is for you to all sit there doing nothing like that? Do you? You might end up with that fat person's disease too. Did you ever think of that?
This set me off completely at this point. She was calling me at 2 AM and trying to bully my mother about her condition, and was now trying to shame me for our lifestyles. Yes, all that she was saying was technically true, but like I said before, we're getting a lot more exercise now, since my mum needs it. Besides, there are a lot of things that are even less healthy. For example, her smoking habits, and the fact her kid lives on the couch playing his PlayStation. So, seeing as how this was hardly the first time she's made comments about this stuff, I told her exactly that. You know, I'm pretty sure chain smoking about 3/4 of a pack of cigarettes a day is more unhealthy. But that doesn't even seem to stop you. And if you're so worried about health, try getting your 11-year-old couch lump outside every once in a while and off of Fortnite. You have absolutely no room to talk over there! After that, all I heard was sputtering and odd stammering from the other side of the phone. I waited for a bit, expecting to get the classic,
"Don't tell me how to raise my kids,"
or
"You ought to respect your elders, young man."
but instead, she just hung up on the phone. It would seem I won this round, and I'll be sure to alert my mother about this call so she can be sure to ignore any further calls from my aunt, or give her a piece of her mind herself. I'll give you guys any updates we get, but for now, peace out. Alright guys, there's another episode done and dusted. Tell me what you think about it in the comments, tell me what you like, what you didn't like, tell me your deepest, darkest fantasies, and yeah, have a good one. Bye.